There's a certain Manning that you need to know about, and I'm going to tell you why you should absolutely root for Arch.
4 downs, 4 questions, 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
They put on the poll question: do you root for Arch Manning when he's not playing Tennessee? Because Arch Manning is going to get the start for Texas this weekend, and I'm excited about a perhaps new era and a new rivalry of Nico Arch Manning. I think there's something there with Peyton Manning's ties, and you know how I love storylines. Reasons you should root for Arch Manning. What down, Coop?
Today's
Whoa, what down, Coop? I'm still working on that.
Coop here, first down.
Thanks, Coop. He's a Manning. Peyton did a lot for you. That's his nephew. That's reason number one. I think that one's pretty easy.
Yeah, I think that's an obvious one. I found myself kind of rooting for Eli when he was at Ole Miss back in the day. Part of that was also rooting for David Cutcliffe because there's very few people that, as human beings, that are good people. David, as in terms of coaches, David's in my top 3, and that had me rooting for Eli Manning. But I root for the Mannings too. So yeah, that being a Manning is enough to root for him.
All right. Adam says, poor Quincy, daddy gambled away his trade school.
Yeah, I mean, Quincy's going to be out on the street pretty soon, guys.
It's second down. All right. What's the other reason we should root for Arch Manning?
Oh, you got to give me Cooper Mays second down here.
I did play it. And you were talking at the same time.
I'm trying to set up the poll question for you, Dave.
Oh.
Cooper Mays.
Okay.
Second down.
More mayo coffee, and people think that you'll take the bet.
I'm not taking the bet. Nope.
Yeah.
I don't take bets I don't win.
Udo Sham says he has a gambling problem. Of course, he'll take the bet.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
I should bet on Arch Manning now just for fun since we're talking about
it. Okay, what's second down?
All right, second down is the Cooper Manning tie. Guys, I think we all know the story of why Peyton went to Tennessee, and I know any Tennessee fan is grateful that he went to Tennessee, but the story is a very sad one. Cooper Manning went to Ole Miss. Peyton was going to go to Ole Miss to play with Cooper, where Cooper would be his primary target at receiver, and the Cooper got a spinal stenosis injury. And I bet now he'd be able to play football again, but back then the medical technology just wasn't there, so he had to give up football. And so for Arch Manning, Cooper's son, to now be at Texas and balling, I'm like, you had to give up football, but that's a reason to root for his son to do so well.
How much money did that neck injury make the Manning family?
Why do you say that?
Because Peyton goes to Tennessee, where David Cutcliffe is, because of his coaching. He would have gone to Ole Miss, where his dad went otherwise. They realized how great of a coach David is and turned him into one of the best quarterbacks to ever play football. So Eli is going to go wherever David Cutcliffe goes, who gets hired by Ole Miss, knowing that they can get Eli with David Cutcliffe. So I don't think either of the two quarterbacks are as good. I don't think combined they win 4 Super Bowls because David Cutcliffe had that much of an impact on their career. None of that happens if Cooper doesn't have a pain in the neck.
Dave, are you telling me that Tommy Tuberville would not have developed Peyton Manning as well as David Cutcliffe?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays.
What's next? What other reasons should we root for Arch?
I think you just disrespected the great offensive genius that is Tommy Tuberville. Okay, so you should apologize.
I'm not gonna be mean to Tommy. He's one of the nicest guys ever. Like, he stood around after a walkthrough, and one of the few practices, like one of 3 that I was late to because they moved the time, and he stood there and did like a 15-minute interview with me. So I'm not mean to anybody that's overly nice to me, and he was.
Okay, all right.
Well, that was back in like 2000. Go ahead.
Third down. The Arch Manning versus Nico Eberle narrative is going to be good for both programs, guys. It's going to be really good for Tennessee to have, Tennessee and Texas won't be rivalries every year. They're not going to play annually, but they there is going to be kind of a talking points rivalry between them two, like a Cold War, so to speak. And Arch versus Nico would be a great narrative for that. I'd love to see them. They're not going to play each other this year or next year on the schedule. I'd love to see if they could face off in like the SEC championship game or something like that, or a playoff game. That'd be just so epic. This narrative.
Oh, wait, why do you think they won't play them next year? I would force that onto the schedule.
They already had the schedule's already out. They're not playing.
Okay, well, then why can't they do it in
2026? Nico's already in the NFL.
Nico's gone. All right, I meant to throw this out. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but is there? Nobody thought Peyton Manning was coming back. Is there any chance that he's financially independent and he says, I can continue to get better and I can continue to improve myself? Or does Josh Heupel say to him, just like Lane Kiffin said to Eric Berry, dude, you need to go? I mean, nowadays you're financially independent if you handled your money right. I mean, he's going to walk away from Tennessee with over $10 million.
Well, I love that Lane Kiffin said that to Eric Berry, and then Lane Kiffin left too, so he didn't really care if Eric Berry stayed. So I mean, let's
he didn't know. It was actually really refreshing for him to say that after Jason Witten got thrown under the bus by Tennessee's coaching staff in the draft. But that's a side note.
Nico Iamaleava. Dave, we're missing a huge part of this, and it's the Manning family. I keep telling you guys this. The real reason Peyton Manning came back for his senior year was because he didn't want to get drafted by the Jets.
I think that's absurd.
No, and we know this because I think the reason Eli Manning came back for his senior year was he didn't want to get drafted by the Bengals. And then it turned out the Chargers had the number 1 pick and he didn't want to get drafted by them. And by the way, and we know this, Dave, with Peyton Manning went out of his way to make the Colts draft him because the family did not want him to get drafted by San Diego at the time. They are because of Arch Manning's situation in New Orleans. Arch Manning is Archie Manning. You know this, Dave, is the classiest human on the face of the earth. He knows that he was railroaded by getting drafted by New Orleans, and he knows it ruined his career. And he went out of his way to make sure that his kids would never go to a situation as pathetically incompetent, a franchise as pathetically incompetent run as the Saints were when he was there. The Jets and the Chargers, would you not agree, are like in the top 5 of most pathetically run franchises, along now with your Cowboys? But
yeah, pretty much. I would say this for some of our younger listeners. Archie Manning would have been one of the all-time great quarterbacks and way ahead of his curve. I still say if he goes to the Steelers, they win 4 Super Bowls. There's no doubt in my mind they're 4-0 in the Super Bowl. I mean,
and if Terry Bradshaw goes to the Saints, he doesn't last 2 years. He doesn't last as long as Archie did.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you just flip off those, because he'd get the Jesus beat out of him. Archie was able to miss a lot of people. So where's our poll question stand before we get to 4th down? I'm rooting for Arch. I'm going to be honest with you. Now, obviously, we're going to root for what's best for Off the Hook Sports if that time ever comes. But I would like
the story
to
of this
see
is but if you're a Tennessee fan, it's good for the Nico versus Arch narrative is going to exist over the next couple of years. You like narratives like that. That helps prop up your program. I mean, this is why it was a mistake for the Lady Vols to nix the UConn series in basketball. That narrative helped them recruit. You know this, Dave. Creating those storylines is huge for recruiting, isn't it? In any sport.
Yes. I'll say this. I'm not, with the way the money's gotten now, I'm not going to rule out that Nico could play 3 years anymore. I mean, when you get beats by Dre and that stuff, I mean, if he wins a Heisman Trophy, and we'll have to do some research, and you got to see that he's that good. We're putting the cart about a mile ahead of the horse, but I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, he's a family guy. I think he loves it at Tennessee. I think all that's genuine. I'm not willing to rule out that he wouldn't play a 3rd year. Are you willing to say that it's absolutely not a possibility, or will you give me any percentage?
Yes. Well, it depends on because of the support staff we're talking about. It could depend. Maybe Nico takes into account who gets the number 1 draft pick. Someone just asked if the Carolina Panthers get the number 1 draft pick. I'm saying this to every quarterback possible. You should do what Eli Manning did if the Panthers have the number 1 draft pick. They're going to sabotage you. I mean, I actually still think Bryce Young could play if he went somewhere better. Honestly,
I don't, because I think his confidence has been destroyed. But that's the Panthers' fault. So we agree on that part for sure. All right. What down?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. Record number of people in here. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. We're live every day at 10 a.m. on YouTube. Make sure you got the notifications on. All right. So I think there is a chance that Nico would come back for his senior season, despite what Caleb says. And I do agree with Caleb. It would depend who had the first pick. I think that would be a factor in it, although I don't think it was as much of a factor with Peyton. But we can agree to disagree. The fourth reason why Tennessee fans should root for Arch Manning is
You should root for greatness. And Arch Manning's potential is too great to not root for. Guys, you were combining Archie Manning's athleticism and Cooper Manning's athleticism, which was good athleticism, with the drop back skills of Eli and Peyton Manning. This is basically answering the question, what would Peyton Manning be if he had mobility? Just Aaron Rodgers level mobility. And you might see that with Arch. This is something everybody in the world wants to see. I mean, I want to see it.
I know it was University of Texas San Antonio, but did you see the way he ran away from that defense? Just the flat out speed. Now, I don't know that Archie, relatively speaking, in the 70s, had that type of speed, top speed compared to defensive players, but he had that shiftiness and that ability. So it's not exactly like Archie, but it is an athletic Peyton Manning, because let's face it, Peyton Manning would face a whole different set of struggles than he did when he went into the NFL.